the magic eye of metaphor. Because once you're comfortable being yourself in front of a group, whether it's large or small, then you have to actually say something, right? It doesn't just, if you're a baby, people will, forgive you and they'll love you just for being yourself. But if you're an adult and you're in a busy world, people will not love you generally just for being yourself. You have to actually say something. You have to have a message. The problem is we are bombarded with messages. There was some research study recently said that we get 30,000 messages per day, marketing messages, most of them, in this hyper-connected world. And the problem is the brain cannot absorb those messages. It's more information than many people would have gotten in a full lifetime in previous generations. So what we do is we shut it out. We just ignore it. And the other thing, this is a little remote device. Do you have one at home for your TV? You switch, you don't even have to get out of your chair. You can just turn it off, change the channel. Well, we've gotten so used to using these things that we do the same thing when we're listening to other people. If it's not interesting, we just change the channel. However, that's rude. So we keep a nice smile and once in a while. And in Japanese, you have a very convenient custom called aizuchi, so you can pretend you're listening. So desu ka? But actually, you're thinking about what you're going to be doing on the weekend. So what you want to do is engage people so they don't change the channel. And one way to do that is through metaphor. This is a picture of a river in Tochigi Prefecture called Kinugawa. Literal translation is Angry Devil River. And I understand the reason for that because as part of our Aikido training, every year for 15 or more years, I went up to this river on January 3rd at 6:30 in the morning and jumped into it as part of the cold water training. Now, how cold was it? I can tell you it was very cold, but that's not going to mean very much, and it'll mean something different to everybody. I mean, if you're from Australia, today is very cold. It just, depends on what your experience is. So what you do is you use metaphors. I'm going to give you several metaphors that might convey this a little bit better. First of all, the temperature averaged 7 degrees below 0 Celsius. That's how cold it was. Now, if you're from a country like I am, which uses Fahrenheit, you really don't understand how cold that is unless you went in the water. Now, the water, it was so cold that the water was warmer than the air. Whoa. Because it was warm, it was water, right? It's 7 degrees below 0 in the air, and you can't wait to get in the water because the air is so cold. The problem is when you get in the water, there's a big shock because your body's just suddenly, so everybody's screaming. Well, it sounds like screaming, but it's actually a kiai. Yeet! 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 You have to do that, otherwise your heart might stop. You feel it. You just have to. That's how cold it was, right? And not only was it that cold, but it was so cold that you can't feel your fingers and your toes, and there's all these rocks on the bottom. So I didn't know this the first time, but you're supposed to wear shoes. But I didn't know that, and so I couldn't feel anything until the next day after I'd been kicking around all these rocks. That's how cold it was. In fact, it was so cold that I didn't even notice that I was standing next to Saber Lion's Ishige Senshu until the next day when the two of us, that's me in the front and Ishige in the back, were on the front page of the Sankei Sports Shimbun on January 4th. I didn't even know he was next to me. I knew who he was, but that's how cold it was. In fact, it was so cold that when I got out, we wear a hakama and keikogi, we're running to warm ourselves up before we get in the water. Then we take off that and we have a swimming suit on. And we go into the water, and when you come out, well, the swimming suit's wet. So before you change back into your Aikido uniform, you have to take off your swimming suit. Well, Now I think they have tents and things, but they didn't have any tents, so there was just you're just out there, but you didn't really care because you just wanted to get back in the warm clothes. And it was so cold that I didn't even notice the women around me changing until I was already changed. That's how cold it was. Anyway, what I just did was give you a series of metaphors that make it a little bit easier to relate to. You probably feel like you were there. And even more, you probably feel like you're never going to go there. Okay? Anyway, that's a lot better than saying it was very cold.